Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, I am Dr. Rekha Sharma, Professor, UGC, Human Resource Development Center, Rashtrasant Tukaji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur. In this video, we shall study proteins. Now the learning objectives of this module. After studying this module, the learner shall be able to describe the chemical structure of proteins, classify proteins on the basis of structure and functions, discuss the functions of proteins, list sources of proteins, discuss supplementary value of proteins, describe effects of deficiency and excess of proteins, and state recommended dietary allowances of proteins. Protein is the basic material of every living cell and is the most important of all known substances in the organic kingdom. It is the only nutrient that can make new cells and rebuild tissues. Therefore, an adequate amount of protein in the diet is essential for normal growth and development and for the maintenance of health. The term protein has been derived from Greek word prolio, means to occupy first place. It was first suggested by Berzelius to describe the complex organic nitrogenous substances found in animal and plant tissues. Proteins form 3/4 of the animal body on a moisture-free basis. They are essential for life processes. All the basic functions of life depend on proteins. Indeed, no form of life exists without proteins. Now, definition of proteins. Proteins are large, complex organic compounds made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. The presence of nitrogen distinguishes protein from carbohydrates and fats. Apart from nitrogen, elements such as sulfur, phosphorus, copper, and iron are also found in some proteins. Now the basic structure of proteins. The basic units from which proteins are built are the amino acids. Now each amino acid, this is one amino acid. Each amino acid contains a carboxyl group or carboxyl acid group and an amino group or NH2 group or a basic group. Then R is the functional group which differentiates one amino acid from another. So this is the structure of one amino acid. Now let us study what is this R group. One protein molecule differs from another in the particular R group it contains or the particular amino acids it contains. Now here this is the fundamental structure of amino acid which we have studied in the last slide. Each amino acid, it has a carboxyl group or COOH group, an amino group or NH2 group, then a hydrogen atom and R group. Now here we have 4 examples of amino acids: alanine, valine, lysine and aspartic acid. In all these amino acids you will find that NH2, COH and H groups are present in all amino acids. The only difference in these amino acids is of a R group. In case of alanine, it is CH3. In case of valine, it is CH3CH3. In case of lysine, this is the R group. And in case of aspartic acid, CH2COOH is the R group. Hence it is said that R is the functional group which differentiates one amino acid from another. Now we shall study peptide linkage. Peptide linkage is the linkage through which two amino acids join together. Now, a peptide bond is a chemical bond that is formed by joining carboxyl group of one amino acid to the amino group of another amino acid. During this bond formation, one H2O, that is water molecule, is released. There is a release of water molecule. So a peptide bond is usually a covalent bond, that is CONH bond, and since the water molecule is eliminated, it is considered as a dehydration process. Now let us study different forms of peptide bond. Now when two amino acids join together by a peptide linkage, it is called as dipeptide. One having three amino acids, a tripeptide, and containing several amino acids, a polypeptide. Now protein molecules are polypeptides being made up of repeating units of CCN group, which forms the backbone of the protein, projecting alternately on either side of the main chain are the R groups. Now the helical structure of proteins. The bonding angles between various atoms along the polypeptide backbone are arranged in a zigzag or spiral manner called the helix. Holding the polypeptides in a helical configuration are the hydrogen bonds which are formed between the carboxyl CO and imido group, that is NH group, along the polypeptide backbone. These hydrogen bonds are parallel to the major axis of the helix. Now the nitrogen content of proteins. The nitrogen content of proteins varies from about 14 to 20%. The average value of 16% is used commonly for converting nitrogen content of foodstuffs tissues into proteins by multiplying with the factor 6.25. Since proteins contain 16% nitrogen, each gram of nitrogen measured is equal to 6.25 grams of protein. The protein content of any food can be estimated by measuring the nitrogen content of the food. Now let us study in detail about amino acids. Now 22 different amino acids are widely distributed in nature. However, the proteins obtained from plants and animals are quite different both in amounts present and in quality. Egg, milk, meat and pulse proteins also differ in both quality and in quantity. This is because the amino acids present in each of these proteins are in different permutations and combinations. Now, thousands of different proteins exist in nature and vary widely from one another in quality. No two proteins will have an identical amino acid content. The 22 amino acids present in proteins could be compared with the letters of the Roman alphabet and the innumerable words present in our dictionary. Similarly, innumerable proteins can be formed by using the 22 amino acids in varying sequences and quantities. Now let us study the classification of amino acids. Nutritionally, amino acids are classified on the basis of the body's ability to synthesize them, and they are classified as essential amino acids or also known as indispensable amino acids. Second is non-essential amino acids or dispensable amino acids. Now what are these essential amino acids? Now those amino acids which cannot be synthesized in sufficient amounts by the body and must be provided by the diet are called essential amino acids. The human adult requires 8 essential amino acids, while growing children require 10 essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are indispensable to life, and hence they are also known as indispensable amino acids. Now, non-essential amino acids. Non-essential amino acid does not mean that these amino acids are not required by the body. They are termed non-essential because they are not dietary essentials. If they are lacking in the diet, they can be synthesized by the body from other amino acids. They are important because they participate in metabolic reactions, and many of them are precursor of important biological compounds. Now let us study the names of these essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Now essential amino acids or indispensable amino acids are isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan and valine. These 8 are essential for adults. In addition to these 8 essential amino acids, histidine and arginine are required by children. Now the names of non-essential amino acids are alanine, aspartic acid, cysteine, asparagine, glutamine, glutamic acid, glycine, hydroxylysine, hydroxyproline, proline, serine and tyrosine. Now recent studies have indicated that histidine may be essential for adults as well. Now what protein quality? No two food proteins are identical in their quality. That is, with the efficiency with which they can be used in the body. The quality of protein depends upon the kind and amount of amino acids present in them in relation to the body needs. Protein quality is an important criterion for tissue synthesis. Each body protein performs a specific function and cannot be replaced by another protein. Now, biological value. Biological value is an index of protein quality. It is defined as the amount of absorbed nitrogen retained in the body. Biological value is the quantitative measure of the nutritive value of a protein food. A protein of high biological value will retain more nitrogen than a protein of low biological value. The perfect protein has a biological value of 100. Now let us study the biological value of some common foods. For example, egg has a biological value of 100, milk 91, casein, that is a milk protein, 77, beef 80, soy protein 74, wheat gluten 64, whey protein 104 and gelatin is 0. Now after studying types of amino acid or the structure of amino acid, now let us study the classification of proteins. Proteins may be classified on the basis of chemical nature and on the basis of functions or quality. Now let us study the classification based on chemical nature. Frequently, proteins are classified based on the chemical nature of amino acids such as solubility and prosthetic group, and they are classified as simple proteins, conjugated proteins and derived proteins. Now let us get to know each of these. Now simple proteins. Simple proteins are made up of amino acids only, which yield amino acids on hydrolysis. For example, zen in corn, albumin in egg white, gliadin in wheat, keratin in hair, globin in hemoglobin. Now conjugated proteins. Those proteins which are combined with a non-protein molecule. For example, glycoprotein contains protein plus carbohydrate. Lipoprotein contains protein plus lipid. Casein contains protein plus phosphoric acid. Hemoglobin contains protein plus heme, and nucleoprotein contains protein plus nucleic acid. Now, derived proteins. Derived proteins are the derivatives of the protein molecules apparently formed through hydrolytic changes in the molecule. These are either primary or secondary protein derivatives. Proteoses, peptones, and peptides are formed when digestive enzymes begin their action on proteins. Now, classification based on function or quality of proteins. Now, they are classified as complete proteins, partially complete proteins, and totally incomplete proteins. Complete proteins. These proteins contain all essential amino acids in sufficient proportions and amounts to meet the body's need for growth and repair of tissue cells. A complete protein food has a high biological value and they are found in animal foods. Eggs, milk, meat, fish, and poultry are complete protein foods. Now, partially complete proteins. These are proteins in which one or more essential amino acids are present in inadequate amounts. They can maintain life but cannot promote growth. They are found in plant foods. Cereals, pulses, nuts, and oilseeds are partially complete protein foods. Cereals contain inadequate amounts of essential amino acid lysine, and pulses are deficient in essential amino acid methionine. Now, totally incomplete proteins. One or more essential amino acids may be completely lacking in these proteins. They cannot maintain life. So, they are incapable of meeting both major functions of growth and repair of proteins. For example, zein in maize and gelatin. Gelatin lacks 3 essential amino acids and is the only animal protein which is incomplete. Now let us study the functions of proteins. Proteins perform 3 main functions: structural function, regulatory function, and energy. Now, structural function. Growth. The primary function of food protein is the synthesis of body cells. All body tissues and fluids except urine and bile are made up of protein. Proteins are the major constituent of muscles, organs, endocrine glands, and collagen. Collagen is the main structural protein of bones, tendons, ligaments, skin, blood vessels, and connective tissues. All enzymes and some hormones, for example insulin, are made up of proteins. Proteins are required for the formation and growth of all these substances. During periods of rapid growth, additional proteins are needed for synthesis of body components. Now, maintenance or wear and tear. Protein is required by all age groups for continuous maintenance of all the cells in the body. Cells have a varying lifespan and proteins are needed to replace the old or worn out cells. Now, regulatory functions. All amino acids from food protein are used for growth and maintenance. Certain amino acids and proteins have highly specialized functions in the regulation of body processes and protection against disease. Now, some of the regulatory functions are as follows. First is hemoglobin, an iron containing protein in the red blood cells, performs an important role by transporting oxygen to the tissue cells. Second is plasma proteins maintain water balance and regulate the osmotic pressure in the body. Third is antibodies that are protein in nature perform a protective function by increasing the body's resistance to disease. Fourth is all enzymes and some hormones, for example insulin, are made up of proteins. The hormone insulin regulates blood sugar levels. Enzymes act as specific catalysts to metabolic processes in the body. Fifth is some amino acids have specific functions. For example, tryptophan serves as a precursor for niacin, a B complex vitamin. The amino acid tyrosine in combination with iodine forms the hormone thyroxine. Now energy. This is the third function of proteins. Like carbohydrates, proteins too provide 4 kilocalories energy per gram when broken down in the body. The basic need of the body is energy, and this takes priority over protein synthesis. If the diet does not supply adequate calories from carbohydrates and fats, the proteins from the diet will be oxidized to meet the energy needs of the body. If the diet is deficient in calories, the body uses up its protein and fat stores. Using protein as a source of energy is not advisable as it puts an extra burden on the body and the pocket because protein foods are costly foods. Protein is used by the body as a source of energy only when no other source of energy is available. Now let us study the supplementary value of proteins. Animal proteins contain all essential amino acids in correct proportions and amounts and are good quality proteins. Proteins in plant foods are generally deficient in one or two essential amino acids. 4 essential amino acids are in short supply in plant proteins and they are lysine, methionine, threonine and tryptophan. Egg protein has a biological value of 100 and is the reference protein as its amino acid composition corresponds most closely to human requirements. Now supplementary value of proteins can be increased by 3 different ways. First is by including a small quantity of complete protein food in every meal. Complete protein foods such as milk, curds, paneer, cheese, buttermilk and eggs could be used in small quantities in various preparations instead of including it in one meal only. For example, cereal and milk, egg or cheese sandwiches, French toast, raita, curd rice or buttermilk at all meals in place of a bowl of curd in one meal. Now second method is by the correct mixtures of plant foods could provide all essential amino acids in suitable proportions and amounts. Like cereal and pulse combinations will complement each other when cereal and pulses are consumed together in the same meal. For example, missi roti, thali peeth, puran puri, idli and rajma chawal. Now the third method is synthetic amino acids may be added to processed foods to compensate for the amino acid deficient in them. For example, lysine enriched bread. Textured vegetable proteins are used successfully to improve the quality of protein and reduce the cost of protein rich foods. Now dietary sources. Proteins are present in both plant and animal foods. Animal food sources provide the highest quality or complete proteins such as eggs, milk and milk products, cheese, paneer, mawa, milk powder, curds, condensed milk, meat, fish, shellfish, poultry and organ meats. Now plant food sources are pulses, especially soya bean. It contains about 43% protein and its products such as soya milk, tofu, textured vegetable proteins, nuts, and oil seeds, groundnut, and gingerly seeds are important sources of protein in the Indian diet. Cereals contain 6 to 12% partially complete proteins. As they form the bulk of the diet, they contribute significantly to the protein content. Vegetables, with the exception of peas and beans, are poor sources of proteins. Green leafy vegetables contain a small percentage of good quality protein, approximately 1 to 3%. Fruits do not contribute towards the protein content of the diet. Now, effects of deficiency. Protein deficiency occurs when an individual does not eat enough proteins or obtains insufficient calories. It occurs during starvation, fasting, fever, infection, injury, burns, and surgery if dietary intake is low. A reduced protein intake over a prolonged period of time leads to loss of weight, fatigue, anemia, nutritional edema, lowered resistance to infection, and poor healing of wounds. Protein deficiency is more marked during periods when protein needs are more, for example, during infancy, childhood, pregnancy, and lactation. Now, protein energy malnutrition or protein calorie malnutrition in children. Protein energy malnutrition is the deficiency of macronutrients or energy and protein in the diet and forms the most important nutritional deficiencies of public health significance. It is widely prevalent in the developing countries of Asia and Africa. According to estimates, there are about 200 million children suffering from various forms of protein energy malnutrition in the world. India contributes almost 40% to the total malnourished population in the world. Now, protein energy malnutrition can be defined as a range of pathological conditions arising from a deficiency of protein and energy and is commonly associated with infections. Protein energy malnutrition is a condition characterized chiefly by the following three forms, namely kwashiorkor, marasmus, and marasmic kwashiorkor. In addition, a large number of children suffer from various subclinical forms of protein energy malnutrition like underweight, stunting, and wasting. Now, kwashiorkor. The word kwashiorkor was given to this disease by people of Gold Coast in Africa and was first introduced by Dr. Cicely Williams in 1935. The term kwashiorkor means the disease which the child gets when the next baby is born, that is, sickness of the deposed child. It is found mostly in children between the ages of 1 to 3 years when they are completely weaned, that is, taken off the breast. Now, clinical signs and symptoms of kwashiorkor. The important clinical signs and symptoms of kwashiorkor are: first is edema. Edema refers to accumulation of fluid in the tissues and usually begins with a slight swelling in feet, gradually spreading up the legs. Later, hands and face may also have edema. If edema is present, a depression is formed when pressure is applied with thumb on the lower part of shin or the dorsal part of foot for about half a minute. Poor growth. Growth retardation is the earliest manifestation of kwashiorkor. The child will be lighter and shorter than its normal peers of same age. The children with kwashiorkor weigh about 80% or less of their normal peers. Mental changes. A kwashiorkor child is usually apathetic, with absolutely no interest in the surroundings. The child will also be irritable and prefers to stay at one place and in one position. The signs discussed above are essentially present in a child suffering from kwashiorkor. Other signs which may be present are hair changes. In kwashiorkor, the hair loses its healthy sheen and becomes silkier and thinner. It takes coppery red color, referred to as discolored hair. Small tufts of hair could be easily plucked without causing any pain, referred to as easy pluckability, just by passing hands through the hair. Skin changes. In many cases, dermatosis, that is changes in skin, is seen. Such changes are common in areas of friction. Dark pigmented patches akin to sun-baked and blistered paint are at times present, known as flaky paint dermatosis. These desquamated patches may peel off, leaving bleeding patches resembling sunburns. Moon face. The cheeks may seem swollen with fluid or fatty tissue and often be slightly sagging. Liver changes. Liver is slightly enlarged and fatty infiltration of liver is usually present. Gastrointestinal tract. Loss of appetite and vomiting are common. Diarrhea is present in most cases. Anemia. Anemia is invariably present due to deficiency of iron and folic acid, which may be aggravated by parasitic infection. Vitamin deficiency. Signs and symptoms of vitamin A and riboflavin deficiency are widely prevalent. Now, marasmus. Marasmus is principally due to the consumption of diets markedly deficient in both proteins and calories. Marasmus, the other end of the same spectrum as kwashiorkor, is common in children below the age of 2 years. Marasmus usually is precipitated by diarrheal diseases. Now, the clinical features of marasmus. The two constant features of nutritional marasmus are growth retardation and severe wasting of muscle and subcutaneous fat. Loss of weight is much more marked than decrease in height. The child is usually below 60% of normal weight. Old man's or monkey's face is the characteristic symptom. The marasmic children are so weak that they may not have even energy to cry, which most often is barely audible. The child is extremely wasted with very little subcutaneous fat, with the skin hanging loosely, particularly over the buttocks. The arms are thin and the skin is loose. Unlike in kwashiorkor, edema is absent and there are no skin and hair changes. However, frequent diarrheal episodes leading to dehydration and micronutrient deficiencies of vitamin A, iron and B complex are common. Now, to just recapping the protein energy malnutrition, kwashiorkor and marasmus. Kwashiorkor is there is marginal energy but insufficient protein intake, and kwashiorkor is the disease that the first child gets when the new child comes, whereas marasmus is because there is insufficient protein as well as energy intake, and the meaning of marasmus is to waste away or dying away. Now, marasmic kwashiorkor. Sometimes in areas where protein energy malnutrition is common, malnourished children exhibit the features of both kwashiorkor and marasmus. Such changes could occur during the transition from one form of severe protein energy malnutrition to another. These intermediate forms are called marasmic kwashiorkor. For example, a marasmic child can develop edema after a severe bout of infection, or a kwashiorkor child, when loses edema, may develop this condition. Such a child is considered as suffering from marasmic kwashiorkor. These children will have extreme wasting of different degrees representing marasmus and also edema, a sign of kwashiorkor. They may also manifest some hair changes and often diarrhea. Now, protein deficiency is also seen in people who follow a crash diet for weight loss. It can be prevented by including correct mixture of inexpensive protein rich foods in the diet. Now about excess intake of protein. An excessive intake of protein is not beneficial to health. When the diet provides more protein than what is necessary for body building, repair, and regulatory functions, the excess protein is used as energy or converted to fat and stored in the adipose tissue in the body. A high protein intake has many disadvantages. First is, once the body needs have been taken care of, the excess protein is deaminated by the liver and urea is synthesized. The kidneys have to work more to excrete the additional amount of urea. A high protein intake is an unnecessary burden on two vital organs, that is the liver and the kidneys. If these organs are diseased, toxic wastes tend to accumulate in the body. The second is, when animal proteins such as meat, poultry, and whole milk products form a substantial part of the high protein diet, there is an increase in blood cholesterol levels. A high intake of protein increases the loss of calcium through the urine. Fourth is, protein rich foods are much costlier and are not an economical source of energy. Now, requirements of proteins. Now, as the recommended dietary allowances of 2020, a safe protein requirements of 0.83 grams per kg per day has been recommended for healthy Indian adults. Previously, it was 1 gram per kg per day. 54 grams per day and 46 grams per day protein have been recommended for adult males and females respectively, plus 9.5 grams per day and plus 22 grams per day has been recommended during the first trimester and the third trimester of pregnancy respectively, plus 17 grams per day and plus 13 grams per day have been recommended during the 0 to 6 months and 7 to 12 months of lactation respectively. Now let us summarize. Proteins are important constituents of all living cells and are made up of units called amino acids. Proteins differ from one another because of the different kinds and amounts of amino acids of which they are composed of. Amino acids are classified as essential and non-essential. Non-essential amino acids can be synthesized by the body in required amounts. Essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by the body and must be included in the diet. The quality of any protein depends upon the essential amino acids present. On the basis of quality, proteins are classified as complete, partially complete, and incomplete proteins. Animal proteins except gelatin are complete proteins, while plant proteins are partially complete proteins. The quality of plant proteins can be improved when several plant foods are combined together or small quantities of animal proteins are included in each meal. Proteins perform three basic functions, namely the structural function of bodybuilding and repair, the regulatory and protective function, and as a source of energy when no other source is available. Proteins are present in abundance both in animal and plant foods such as eggs, meat, pulses, especially soya beans, groundnuts, and textured vegetable proteins. Most vegetables and all fruits are poor sources of protein. An excessive intake of protein is not beneficial as it increases the burden on two organs, namely the liver and kidneys, to metabolize and excrete the wastes arising from amino acid breakdown. When the protein intake is inadequate, protein cannot perform the required functions in the body and the deficiency results. Deficiency of proteins lead to the twin disorders of marasmus and kwashiorkor and may be cured by dietary intervention. These are the references. With this, we have come to an end of the lecture on proteins. In the next video, we shall study lipids. Thank you.